All right, hello. Am I live here? Let's go. All right, guys. First live stream. If you don't know, my name is Nolan, and this is Solving Life. Today, I'm going to be going over what we just heard on Tesla's earning call. Super excited to get into it. This is going to be just the first initial reaction. We'll do a really big deep dive later this week once I really digest this and watch it a couple more times. First thing that was really interesting is Elon, comes on first thing and gives a couple talks. And one of the first things he said is they delivered almost as many cars as they have produced in their entire lifetime as a company. That just shows the growth that they have really been had this year. I mean, last year they only delivered about 200,000 vehicles, and it's just been growing since then. So it's really nice to see. I mean, this massive jump. They guided for about 50% increase, which will give us 7,500 for the deliveries next year. I mean, that's kind of interesting. It's on the lower side. I think a lot of people were thinking of more about 850,000, but I still think that they'll be able to knock those numbers out of the ballpark. They said that they also have reached full speed in the production in the Model Y. And I mean, that's very, very, very low time to really ramp that production. I mean, that's very, very impressive that they were able to do that. They put the heat pump in every single vehicle. They've completed the ramp of the Model Y single piece casting. They said that Texas and Berlin will both start production this year. I think that's pretty instrumental. I mean, we'll see if they can do that. I know Berlin has the best shot. Texas, I still think, might produce its first vehicles early next year, but we'll definitely see. A big thing is the new Model S and Model X, the plaid. I mean, I just saw the pictures of the new interior and exterior, and I mean, man, those things look great. I mean, it was crazy that they said they're going to be delivering the first ones in early February. I think that that's going to be the main model plaid. They'll probably still do the plus version of that a little bit later in the year, but it's hard to tell right now. I mean, all he said was plaid. He didn't really tell us if it was going to be either or. I mean, it's a new tri-motor, new interior. They said that he'll do a separate call on it, so it'll be interesting to see when they kind of set that up. I know if they're going to be doing deliveries in February, it doesn't really give them much time to do that. I mean, we're talking a couple weeks to a month. And let's see, I mean, the Model Y, the first production vehicle to ever go 0 to 60 under 2 seconds. I mean, it is just a luxury vehicle. So I mean, that's very impressive. The base price has jumped up $10,000. Elon claims that's because it's the best car of any price, includes all the super expensive ones to the cheap ones. It's very impressive. I mean, it also helps the people that just bought the Model S just a couple months ago before the refresh still be happy and not really get that FOMO of missing out on the new one because they got a great price on it. Let's see here. To give an update on the FSD, said there's about 1,000 beta testers. So, I mean, that's a decent number. I kind of thought that they would have had it a little more expanded, let a couple other people actually use the FSD beta, but apparently it's been pretty close quarters in that. They said that it has been improving at a rapid rate. Elon says that he still doesn't have any interruptions on his drives, which, I mean, I know he uses the cutting edge and he might be a little bit more optimistic than the general public, but I mean, I think that this shows that there have been a lot of improvement done in FSD. He says that he thinks that we can match the human driver by the end of the year. But ultimately, let me scroll down my notes here a little bit. I know he said that when they talked about the autonomy right here, yeah, there was a level 5 autonomy question by one of the retail investors. And Elon thinks that for FSD to be fully made available and be approved by the regulators, that it has to be better by humans by a factor of about 100 to 200%. I mean, has to be pretty hard to be better than the average driver. I mean, I know we all drive and we always see cars in accidents or off the side of the road and we're just like, what the hell is going on here? But I mean, to be able to be pretty much perfection is what he's sounding like it needs to be. And I mean, you're never going to get that in an imperfect world. There's always going to be that 99.9%. And he said that right now, what's really holding them kind of back, or what they not really holding them back, but what they really want to improve on is just getting better at labeling. And I mean, that's just going to take a little bit of time as the neural net is trained. They have made a big jump. The big jump that they made to really increase the FSD is that, pardon me, is that they're using their 8 cameras in a surround video. Before, they had just frame by frame. They took every camera as its own little part, and they didn't combine them. So now they are combined every single camera. So instead of just having separate pieces that they have to put together, it's already put together before the neural net looks at it. And they've introduced the time factor, so it's video in motion. So that is really, really, really going to drastically increase full self-driving. I mean, if I just had to take pictures and pictures and drive with that would probably be a lot more difficult than just having a constant motion. And what was very interesting is that Elon said that Tesla is open to licensing autopilot and FSD to other OEMs. He said that they have already had some preliminary talks, and he's also talked about, again, opening the supercharger network to other companies if they want to use it. We'll see if any of them bites, and it'll be very interesting to see what cars will take Tesla's licensing for the autopilot and FSD to see. I mean, if you're going to be driving like a Ford that has Tesla driving, are we going to be driving Kias, or is it going to be more of the startups? Like, is Lucid maybe going to try to get in there to use their or other like electric vehicle makers? Going back to the notes here, let me see. So a big thing on how big the robotaxi network can be for Tesla is that Elon thinks that the utility will increase by 5x by having robotaxis on there. And when he was kind of coming to that number, it sounded like he was almost underselling that. And to even undersell it even more, maybe oversell it, depending on how you look at it. He said that if it was only a 2x increase with having robotaxis, basically it'd be like selling 2 times the amount of cars. Their profit for the entire year would just be doubled. So, I mean, if we were 5xing that to 10xing that, I mean, that would be insane. And I think the margins and the business model is just going to exceed what everyone else is thinking is possible. And I mean, I know a lot of people have claimed that maybe in 10, 15 years, maybe sooner, if Tesla can really nail full self-driving, that owning a car is going to be a thing of the past. It's going to be so cheap to use a robo-taxi service that it should be so impractical to own your own car. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, I love owning a car, so it could just be me just not believing in that, but I totally think that, I don't know, man. It's crazy to think. But let's move on here. Let's see. Elon still says that the company is in high growth mode. And Elon took a second because of all the talks about him always talking about how the stock price is too high or saying things about the stock on Twitter. He just took a minute to really just talk about this price and how he can justify it. And he thinks that 2021 is going to be a more exciting year for Tesla, great year for growth, the factories and the new products coming out. And it was interesting that he said new products coming out. And that was kind of all that was said. And I mean, that could be, I mean, I'm hoping that it's more than just the Model S and Model X Plaid. I'm hoping maybe it's something more than the Cybertruck. Hopefully that means the Semi will be able to really actually be used. They might announce another vehicle, but we'll see. We'll keep our eyes kind of open and our ears open for that. Then they passed it off to Zach, and he told us that, I mean, our cash in Q4 was 1.9 billion. They used that cash and some of the other cash to reduce debt. This is the first ever calendar year of profitability. The profit margins have increased. Stock-based compensation has increased because of the stock price jump and the employee compensations they have. They said that for the auto gross margins, that they have invested in a lot of their money in products, the Model S, casting, and the heat pumps in Model 3. So that kind of limited what we could see on that margin. They said that the same was said with the service because of the overall growth that they had this year. Let me try to find where this was asked in the questions real quick. Let's see here. Because, yeah, they mentioned this on a question where the service expansion is really getting a lot of focus, and they spent a ton of money building that. And that kind of beat down this quarter a little bit. But in the long run, I mean, you have to invest in your company to really expand it and grow it. And I think that's going to pay off in the long run. And then let's see here. He said that OPEX is continuing to reduce. The margins will continue to grow. I mean, as a long-term investor, this is the plan. I mean, as long as they can keep doing it. And I mean, this is the whole point of the growth. So that is good. They said that they are going to be investing a lot in the supercharger. I've been hearing this. They've been constantly, been building at a consistent rate. So we'll see if that kind of jumps up or if it's just going to be still that consistent growth. We'll see if they really start on the mega chargers. I really haven't heard a whole lot explained about that in a while. So we'll see how that's going to go. Then they moved on to solar, and I'm very excited. I mean, solar had a pretty good month, and it sounded like Elon is super focused on trying to build that. He said that at the Model 3 time, they had to pull a lot of their engineers away from that to really focus on getting the Model 3 down, ramped, and outproduced. So those guys are all back at the solar part, and it's really gonna take off. I mean, then Zach cut off kind of Elon, and he said that there's industry-leading cost structure first is needed before they can provide industry-leading prices. And I think that that's why we have seen a drop in the solars. They were really focused on that back end and that manufacturing. And once they have that nailed, they're really going to be able to provide those at an industry-leading price, and it's going to be more efficient than ever. Elon hopped back in and said that really what they've been working on and they plan to have fixed by the end of the year is the integration between the Powerwall and the retrofit and the solar roof. So I think there's just some technical aspects that need to be worked out between if it's going to a retrofit or if it's going to a solar roof. But we'll really see. I mean, Elon is very confident that they'll have this fixed. I imagine it's just a software and coding issue. So hopefully they can be really working on that and get that cranked out. Another interesting note was FSD transfer. Elon was very adamant that this is not in their plans. I know on Twitter, he responded to a couple tweets about people being a little irritated or wondering why it wasn't a transferable thing. And the bottom line is it's just a software. It's just a flip of the switch. It's not something that they are planning. But then he dropped a bombshell that they will be offering FSD subscriptions within the next 2 months. And I mean, I'm really excited to see. I'm sure there'll be different stages with different features, and hopefully it's price pointed well. I know that when I buy my Tesla after my lease is up, I will definitely be wanting full self-driving. But I mean, if the price continues to increase as it is, I mean, in another 2 years' time, I mean, we could be looking at anywhere from 15 to 20,000 extra to use full self-driving, and that just might be out of my price range. So having a subscription base will really increase this. And going to their talk when they were talking about their game plan in China and how well that's been going, Elon talked about how the FSD take rate in China is very low. I believe I have to re-listen to fully do this, so don't take this for exactly like word, but I believe he said that the take rate of FSD in China is around 1% to 2%. It's very low, but he thinks that once they nail it and it's something that they can actually see good results in, and it's not just a beta or just a trial period, that he really sees that expanding. So I think that maybe having a subscription would be something that would help too, because it might just be price pointed where they just don't really feel comfortable spending that money on something that they're not sure if they're really going to get their value out of it for the time they own the car. So, I mean, that is a very It's a very valid. I mean, I know a lot of people struggle with the FSD, whether they should get it or not, because they're not quite sure of when it's going to be complete. I think now we're getting a clearer and clearer picture that they are getting there. And once the beta gets widely expanded, where that's just where it's at, I think that that's going to quell a lot of this, you know what I'm saying? So let's see here. In 2022, Tesla has said that they want to be at 200 gigawatt hours a year. Let's see here. That's all I have in my notes. I can't remember exactly what else was said about that, so we'll move right on. Tesla service. The service guy said that after, I think it was 3 years time, which is probably when maybe partial warranty is out of some vehicles. I'll have to do some research on that. But I believe he said that after a 3-year time period, Teslas need serviced about a third less than the average. So that's also why their service numbers might not always be quite as high as some of the internal combustion engine vehicles, because they are a little more low maintenance, low parts, not as many things. You don't have to go in for oil changes and stuff like that. So that could be a reason why, I mean, their service is so low sometimes. And I know it was extremely low this year because they spent a lot of money building that up. So hopefully we'll see next year some improvements on that, but it could take, 3 to 5 years to really see an initial capital investment really come to fruition. They said that right now that they hope to have you in and out within 2 hours. They really want to speed the process, make it more luxurious feel and as painless as possible. They said that their appointments are improving in 100 of the 140 service centers they have. And in those 100 that you can get in less than 10 days, that's not too bad, especially considering they only have, 140 or so service centers. When, I mean, in my area alone, I mean, I have one Tesla service center, but I have like 4 Acura dealerships. I have like 30 Honda dealerships. And I mean, they're just, car dealerships are everywhere. And when with Tesla not really having those, it can make scheduling those service calls a little more challenging, just because there's just not as many of them, as many of the stations. They also said that they are moving away from calling to set up a service, and they're trying to push everything towards the app. They want to do this because it leaves a clear record. Things can always be left off on a phone call where we're talking. I jot down a couple notes where I know a couple things that are going on, but some things are always lost in those translations. So it's really nice to have everything done in one location where you can just see a complete recap of all the communication. Let's see what else was talked about here. Tesla also did the PSA like they did on, I think, at Battery Day and maybe Q3. I can't remember how the timelines come up. I'm been busy, man. So he said the suppliers should not be scared. I mean, Tesla's not going to cut them off. They need sales at an alarming rate. I mean, I think everyone knows that that's pretty much where a lot of the constraints are. And I mean, if they had access to a lot more batteries, they could probably find a way to produce a couple more vehicles. And let's see. And someone asked a little bit later, which is what I was trying to find. I just found it. Will the battery suppliers have to be able to build that new cell? And Elon just said, quite frankly, like, not required. I mean, the new the new Model S is using a different cell. I didn't quite get it, and I tried to skip back, but then I just needed to move on. I'll definitely look up to see that cell a little bit later, but they're using a different cell. They do want to eventually move to just one form factor on their battery cells, but they do realize that not everyone is capable of making these things at a rate that they need. So they will have to take time for the technology to really catch up to some of these suppliers. So they just know that in their plans, they have to be able to use a couple different form factors for the next however many years it takes until this technology is widely available and everyone is using it and they can buy it from those suppliers. Someone asked about the regulatory environment for FSD. They did not give an answer about that. It's something that I think would be mainly speculative right now. And then on the regulatory credits, they didn't give a guidance or anything like that. They said that a lot of their regulatory credits for this quarter were something that were just last minute deals, and they had no idea, they had no plans for it. So it's something that it either happens or it doesn't. It has never been part of their plan. They'll happily, sell those credits to other companies that need them and use their capital to increase their vehicles and make them better. But it's not something that they build their business on being able to use and needing to use. And they will use a lot of those regulatory credits to use it on debt reduction to save on interest. And let's see. Another question was asked about electric vans. Elon basically said that the van is something that they would love to do, probably do it at some point, but it's just not in the cards right now. They don't have the space. They don't have the batteries. I believe Elon said that the battery would need to be about a 5 times bigger pack than what's in the Model 3, but I don't know. That seemed a little bit too big for me, so I'll definitely have to relook at that. They said that the Tesla Semi would probably be the first vehicle to reach full self-driving, just because they do a lot of the same routes. There would be just a lot of driving highways, and so it would be probably the easiest to really get it nailed. There's not too many other case scenarios because it is a lot of highway just going company to company. Elon got a little frustrated because he got another, why is battery better than hydrogen fuel cells? And I mean, he just shut it down. He's like, just told everybody to look at the periodic table. It's a low density. It's a big pain in the ass. He's like, if anything, I can see him talking about propane, but like hydrogen is just crazy. So that's really my initial breakdown of how the earnings call went. I mean, thanks for watching. I'll definitely try to, on Friday when I have a little bit more time, I'm going to do a deep dive. I'll re-listen to the earnings call a couple times, compare it to some of my other notes that I have, and I'll do a much more detailed, in-depth look, see if we get any more information coming out. Thanks for watching, everybody. My name's Nolan, and this is Solving Life.